If you grew up in the UK any time from the 70s through to the 90s, there's a good chance you'll remember Vesta Paella.
The moral of this story is always keep a packet of Vesta handy and cook up a wonderful meal at the drop of a hat.
And I'll be honest, I absolutely loved it. At the risk of offending the whole of Spain, it was one of the few cheap, low-quality meals which I actually prefer to the real thing, possibly due to a mixture of nostalgia and MSG. And yes, sorry, I will be pronouncing it paella and not paella, because I see that as the British pronunciation, and I feel a bit silly saying paella. Vesta meals actually go way back. They were launched in the UK in the 1960s by bachelors as part of the big convenience food boom, when continental dishes suddenly became exciting and modern for British kitchens. Paella itself, of course, comes from Valencia in Spain, where it started as a humble rice dish cooked in wide shallow pans for farm workers, but the Vesta version was very much its own British interpretation, quick, dried, and designed to be made with just boiling water and a pan. Over the years, the recipe changed a few times, like many long-running packaged foods. Ingredients were tweaked, formats evolved, and eventually, sadly, the paella was discontinued in 2021. Since then, information about it has become surprisingly hard to find. I've searched everywhere, and the only solid reference I've managed to track down is an ingredients list from the back of one of the final boxes. The chicken from the earlier versions had long since disappeared. If anyone knows any more information, particularly on the history and earlier recipes or ingredients, please let me know in the comments. So in this video, I'm attempting something a bit nerdy and a bit nostalgic, recreating the classic Vesta Paella from scratch, using that ingredients list and a lot of educated guesswork. Will it taste like the original? Will the texture be right? And can we bring back a little bit of retro magic? Let's find out. So I've summarised the ingredients from the back of the pack on this sheet of paper to make it easier. As we've seen, the only things that we have exact quantities for in percentages are the rice, which is 77%, and the dried vegetables at 9%. So to work out how much rice we need, what we needed to do was to take the total for the dry ingredients, which we know is 146 grams, and then work out what 77% of 146 is, which comes to 102.42 grams. So all I need to do now is measure out 112.42 grams, and that will allow us to replicate the contents of the rice sachet. Of course, we don't even know what kind of rice was used. I do remember it was some kind of short grain rice. I don't know if it was paella rice or not, but I'm going to use this. So we're looking for 112.42. This unfortunately only goes into the gram level of detail. Oops. So that's the contents of the rice sachet sorted out. And I'm going to switch to a much more accurate scale for these other ingredient quantities. As you can see, some of these are extremely minuscule, so it's going to be quite difficult to measure them out. So I'm going to use this precision portable scales from Maplin. I'm just going to get a measure for the bowl on its own to begin with. That's 47.95 grams. I'm just going to write that down here. 47.95 grams empty bowl. So the next thing is dried vegetables at 9%, which totals 13.14 grams of the total. There is a little bit more detail on the back of the box which I'd like to fill in here. What those dried vegetables consist of, which is carrots, peas, tomato, red pepper, and green pepper. So obviously we don't know the quantities within that 9% of how much is carrots, how much is peas, etc. The first thing I've got is these freeze-dried green peas, which I think are going to be very close to what was in the original product. Let's open these up. think scissors might work a little bit better. Okay, let's get the scale back. Right, so we're aiming for 13.14 grams in total, so let's just get an idea of how much some of these weigh. Oops. So that's 1.34 grams. I remember there being quite a lot of peas in here. Okay, I'm going to go for more than that. Go for 5. So the next thing I've got is this mixture of 7 dried vegetables, which I got from Amazon. It's not an exact match for the ingredient list here. It's, I don't know if you can see that, it's a mixture of leek, carrot, onion, zucchini, red pepper, tomato and celery. So it's a fairly close match. We're missing green pepper, we've got tomato, we've got carrot, and we've also got extra leek and celery. And now we need to bring it up to 13.14. Never going to get this exact. We'll just do my best. 13.19. That'll do. Then we have dried glucose syrup. I did manage to get hold of some of this. This is also from Amazon. Let's see if we can get this open. All of these estimates, all of these quantities are estimates from now on, obviously. So that calls for 6.8 grams. Put the scales back on. I think this is probably one I'll adjust down in future. It seems like quite a lot. Okay, that'll do. So after that we've got prawns, dried prawns, 6.2 grams. I got these dried shrimp on Amazon. I couldn't find anything else really. Reset the scales to 0, 6.2 grams now. Oops. Okay, a little bit. Too much. 6.27, that'll do. Salt, 2.2 grams. I'm using this Himalayan pink salt because it's just what I've got at the moment. Looking for 2.2 grams. Tiny bit more. Okay, it's a bit over, but that'll do. Now sugar, we're looking for 1.64 grams. Reset the scale. Okay, I've gone over, but that'll do. So now we've got vegetable oils. I'm just going to leave that for a minute and come back to it. Yeast extract, the same, I'm going to come back to it. Flavour enhancers. I've only got MSG, so I'm going to add in 0.4 grams of MSG. This is the brand I'm using, Lotus. Okay. Ground turmeric, we've got 0.4 grams as well. Constantly going slightly over. Now we've got garlic powder at 0.3 grams. This is from Home Bargains, I think. Now the rest of it is a bit debatable, so flavourings, I have no idea what these flavourings are. There's no indication. If anybody has any idea what this might be, then leave a reply in the comments. I'd really appreciate it. To sort out flavourings, yeast extract and vegetable oils, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in some marigold vegetable bouillon. So this has vegetable oils in it. It's got sunflower and rapeseed. It's also obviously got natural flavourings, so maybe the flavourings in here are from a kind of stock. So we'll add a little bit of this in. I'm going to add in, I don't know, about half a teaspoon. Less than half a teaspoon. There's not really a lot left in terms of the weight. So that covers the vegetable oils and flavourings somewhat. And the final thing I'm going to add into it is also flavouring related. I'm going to add in this Aromat all-purpose savoury seasoning. This has yeast extract in it, so that's going to cover the yeast extract element. It's also got flavourings in it as well, so that might be appropriate for the flavouring element. So I'm just going to add in a few shakes of this. And that's it. Right, so I'll give this a stir. And does that look like the contents of the paella packet look like in the original paella from Vesta? Probably not a million miles away, to be honest. So let's check the total weight now. So we've got 81.30. So the weight of the empty bowl was 47.95. Just make some space here, get rid of the stuff we don't need. So firstly I'll work out what the remainder is after we've deducted the rice from the full value of 146. So we need to work out 146 minus 112.42, which comes to 33.58. So hopefully the contents of this bowl is around 33.58. So as we've seen, the total of the dry ingredients plus the bowl they're in was about 81 grams. So if we do 81 minus 47.95, that should give the total of just the dry ingredients from the paella sachet. That comes to 33.05. So we're a bit underweight, so what can we add in? Okay, we'll add in a little bit more flavouring. That should be about right. So the instructions are to add 12 grams of margarine or butter in a large frying pan. I always use more than that when I was a kid making it and when I was a student, so I'm going to put in probably quite a bit more butter than that. So let's let that melt. Okay, then the instructions are to add the contents of the rice sachet. Fry gently without browning for 1 to 2 minutes. Let's give that a stir. Then step 4, remove the pan from the heat. Add 624 millilitres of cold water, which seems like a very specific amount. Seems like a lot of water for that amount of rice. Now it says stir in the contents of the paella sachet. So here's our equivalent of the paella sachet that we made before. So we stir that in. And then it says bring to the boil, stirring continuously. Okay, the instructions now, step 8, is simmer for 20 minutes, stirring occasionally. So I'm going to turn the heat down. I'm still going to leave it on quite a rapid simmer because that is a lot of water to reduce down, and I think the rice is going to be overcooked if it's really going to absorb that amount of water, so I'm going to leave it a fairly rapid simmer. Okay, I'll set a timer for 20 minutes. Okay, that's 20 minutes now. Let's have a look. Yep, that is definitely thick enough. I did turn the heat down to the minimum after the first 10 minutes because I did have it boiling too fast and it was just evaporating too quickly. So let's get this out and have a look. There you go. So first impression, I've got to say it does smell more or less exactly like I remember, so that bodes well for what it's going to taste like. Let's give it a taste. A bit too hot. Yeah, definitely a success. The peas taste really nice. Surprised about that. I thought the peas would taste of nothing. Can't really taste the prawns individually. I suppose the flavour from these just goes into the whole. If I try one on its own though, it is quite nice. Yeah, no, those are very, yeah, they have a lot of flavour, but just not when it's mixed in with the rice. Okay, that tastes really nice, and it does taste very close to what I remember. If you have any comments or suggestions on how to improve the recipe, then please let me know. I think next time I'm going to probably add more prawns, more peas. I'm going to try reducing the the dried glucose syrup, because that's more of a bulking agent.